All right, let's jump right in. Today we're talking about something almost everyone has dealt with at some point, diseases of the conjunctiva. What exactly is this part of your eye and, what happens when it gets angry and inflamed? Let's get into it.
You know that feeling, right? You wake up, you look in the mirror, and bam! One of your eyes is red, itchy, maybe a little gunky. It's a universal experience for sure, but what is actually going on in there? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on that all-too-familiar red eye. Okay, so first things first, let's meet the main player here, the conjunctiva. The easiest way to think about it is like a super thin, totally clear, protective skin for the front part of your eye and the inside of your eyelids. It's really your eye's first line of defense against all the stuff floating around out there. Dust, germs, you name it.
So when that protective layer gets irritated and inflamed, we get what's called conjunctivitis. You probably know it as red eye or pink eye. The official definition is pretty simple. It's just redness of that conjunctiva plus some kind of discharge. And that discharge, well, that's actually a huge clue for figuring out what's causing the problem.
See, conjunctivitis is really just a description of the symptoms, not the actual cause. To figure out what's really going on, we got to dig a little deeper. So let's line up the three most common culprits behind that annoying redness and irritation.
First up, we've got bacterial conjunctivitis. This is the one that often causes those red eye outbreaks you hear about spreading through schools or offices. The real telltale sign here is a thick, goopy, pus-like discharge. The fancy medical term is mucopurulent discharge, but you'll know it as that sticky, yellow or green stuff that can literally crust your eyelids shut in the morning.
Next in the lineup is the viral version. This is often caused by the same kind of virus that gives you a cold, an adenovirus, and let me tell you, it is super contagious. Now, the big difference here is the discharge. Instead of that thick gunk, this one is typically clear and watery. In kids, it can even come with a fever and a sore throat.
And suspect number 3 is allergic conjunctivitis. Now, this one's different. It isn't an infection at all. It's actually your body having a big overreaction to an allergen like pollen. It's often seasonal, which is why some people call it warm weather conjunctivitis. The key thing to look for here is a really distinct stringy or ropey discharge. And the itching. Oh, the itching is usually way more intense than with the other two.
So, we've gone through the common types of red eye, the ones that are usually pretty manageable. But now we need to talk about a very specific bacterial infection that is so much more than just a simple irritation. This is an infection that has become one of the world's leading causes of preventable blindness.
We are talking about trachoma. It's a specific kind of infectious conjunctivitis, and it's caused by the bacterium Chlamydia trachomatis. It usually spreads through contact with discharge from the eyes and nose of infected people, and it really takes hold in places with poor sanitation and crowded living conditions.
And this is not just some eye infection, it is a full-blown public health crisis. Just look at that number. We're talking about nearly 6 million people who are either already blind or are right on the edge of losing their sight because of this disease. And the most important word in that whole sentence is preventable.
So, how in the world does a simple conjunctival infection end up causing blindness? Well, the answer is in the very unique and kind of sinister life cycle of the Chlamydia bacterium. It's all about a vicious cycle of repeated infection that causes more and more devastating damage over time.
So how does this nasty little bug work? It's basically a two-stage attack. First, this infectious particle, the elementary body, latches onto one of our own eye cells. Then, once it gets inside, it morphs into something called a reticulate body and basically turns our cell into a little factory, just churning out copies of itself. And the final step? All those new copies change back into the infectious form, burst out of the cell, and then go off to infect even more cells, starting the whole destructive cycle all over again.
So every single time that cycle of infection and reinfection happens, it creates inflammation. Over time, that inflammation leads to some really bad scarring on the inside of the eyelid. This scarring actually pulls the eyelashes inward, so they start scraping against the cornea with every single blink. You can imagine the pain, and this eventually leads to irreversible blindness. To track this, the World Health Organization has a very clear way of classifying it.
It's really broken down into two main buckets. First, you have active trachoma. That's when the actual bacterial infection is happening, causing all that inflammation. And then you have inactive trachoma, which is the scarring stage. At this point, the infection might be gone, but the damage, the after effects, the scarring is left behind.
And making this distinction is absolutely critical. Why? Because you cannot treat these two stages the same way. The entire game plan has to change depending on whether you're fighting the live infection or you're dealing with the physical damage that it's already caused.
This really lays out the two-pronged strategy. For active trachoma, the goal is simple: kill the bacteria, and you do that with antibiotics, either an ointment or pills. But once you get to that inactive, scarring stage, antibiotics are useless. The goal completely shifts. Now you have to address the physical damage. This often means surgery to fix those inwardly turned eyelashes and stop them from scraping the cornea.
So we've really seen the whole spectrum, haven't we? From a common, simple red eye all the way to a global health emergency causing preventable blindness. It just goes to show how a seemingly small problem can have massive consequences. The fight against trachoma isn't just about pills and surgery. It's a huge public health battle to improve hygiene and living conditions to break the cycle of infection. It really leaves us with a big question. In a world where we have all the tools to stop this, what will it finally take to turn the tide and get rid of this preventable disease for good?